Hello everybody, this is Taekwondo Tenchi, today coming at you again with another video. Now this video was actually sparked by Moist Critical, one of my favorite YouTubers who lightly touched on this subject that we're going to talk about, but I'm going to be providing a bit more context, a bit more in depth with this, as well as going towards a few allegations that Moist had mentioned, such as the audience constantly defending him. And with some surprising results coming about this and some new information that I have learned, I will be sharing it with you all, starting with context. So Chris Brown is a singer, songwriter, dancer. Came out in the early 2000s, was kind of like a cleanish look and like a goody boy, kind of like a Usher, I guess would be the best way to put it. He didn't really he was never portrayed as the bad boy or anything like that until about 2009 where he was convicted and charged of felony assault charges on his then girlfriend Rihanna. Yes, the famous Rihanna. Then images of Rihanna after the incident, like right after the incident, would leak online and people would see just how bad it truly was. Now, this seemed like an incident that didn't derail his music career, sadly, for God knows whatever reason, but it was the start of something that was going to start spiraling. And this would lead to outbursts, allegations, incidences where he couldn't enter other countries for his tours, and so on. His first outburst from these incidents came around 2011, which was 2 years after the initial incident when they were still asking questions about Rihanna on the Good Morning show when he just released a new album. And all he wanted to do was talk about the album and not about what happened, 2 years ago where he beat a woman really bad. He didn't want to talk about that at all. So he ended up doing the interview a little bit, dealing with those questions, trying to avoid the questions, and then later ended up having a whole entire meltdown inside his dressing room. Ended up breaking one of the windows, shattering glass across Times Square. And just over a year later, after this outburst, he would find himself back in violent old ways, where he would be involved in a big fight between him and Drake and an NBA star at a nightclub. And then in the next year, he ended up assaulting a beloved artist of Frank Ocean, allegedly. In that same year, him and his bodyguard got into an physical altercation with two men and ended up getting charges filed as a misdemeanor. So right now, we are only 3 years after the initial incident with Rihanna of him abusing her, and there is a continuation of violent events that keep persisting with him. And this persists all the way till 2024, right? This persists that long. 13 years, he is still having allegations. Not all of them can be proven. Some of them were settled out of court, so whatever. But there's been other cases where he's been charged. There's been restraining orders. And just looking at this Texas case, that, may I remind you, just recently happened from a person who has a history of allegations and violent charges, people cannot believe that he would have done this. Like, am I fucking insane? We'll be going over. Let's cut to the Twitter feed, baby. Let's cut to the X feed, and we'll prove some points here. So I'm not gonna watch the video. All right, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it. But we are going to look at this tweet, this X, I don't know what they call it. This thing is just describing what happened, right? And going through the comments, there are a lot of defenders. I'm going to point out a few highlight ones to look at. A few highlights from this whole thing. All right, so this is the first one I decided to highlight because I think this is absurd. So they're still thinking about fucking him right after more violent allegations have been brought forth. That is all on their mind, is about fucking him. Now this second tweet that I'm showing is probably trying to make the point that 90% of the other ones are, which is, what did they do? What did they do wrong to get their ass beat? And I don't know how bad they got their ass beat, but like, what did they do wrong? Obviously, Chris Brown wouldn't have done this unprovoked. It's not like he has a history of doing this. So there's no way he would have done this without someone pushing him or doing something so bad that they deserve to get their ass beat first. In this video I'm going to show is kind of showing how all these tweets are like that, and how they can't believe these 4 people tweets, but these random people on the Instagram comments, as you can see in the post, these random people said they weren't even allowed to be back there. They ruined the meet and greet for everybody else, blah blah blah, and all that other bullshit. But it's like, why are we? Chris Brown hasn't said anything. Why aren't? Where there's no one, the only first-hand accounts is those 4 guys that were there, but we're believing people that didn't even see it happen, who just said they weren't supposed to be back there, and are upset about their meet and greet, and that's who we're believing? Those people? Chris Brown fans? Why? Why are we taking the side of people who already like that person and who don't think he could do wrong? How is that an argument? How are people thinking like this? Am I in Stupidville? Alright, for my next point, we're going to be moving on to Reddit. So, let's go into that. I'm going to make a few side points first before we get into the defending on Reddit. Okay, side point numero uno is that obviously this is after the Moist Critical video, and he brought up the Reddit a little bit, and they were flooded with Moist Critical fans going on there and posting and talking shit about Chris Brown, and people were upset. And then they tried clowning on Moist, but I thought they chose a good picture of him to choose to try to make fun of him. I mean, yeah, he's wearing a silly apron, but like, he looks good in that picture if you ask me. So one of the Moist fans, we'll call them Moisties, she, whoever, posted on the Reddit and said, "Why are you guys supporting them?" And this was one of the fans' responses, and I'll let you kind of wrap your head around it. So besides for the subreddit just fanboying over everything he does, and with the influx of Moist fans coming in, it was really hard to kind of find what I was looking for specifically. I did see some glimpses of it, nothing really amazing, but this is kind of like the general understanding, I guess, how a Chris Brown's fan brain works. And this is under a post just saying the lawsuit, that's it, and then they locked the posts so you can't post any new comments or anything, but I'm sure there would be more defenders if there was. There's only like 6 comments, and then all of them are still like defending him, like, well, why isn't he locked up then? If he's not locked up, then he didn't do it. And I don't know the reason for doing the lawsuit instead of trying to press criminal charges or doing both. I don't know. I'm not too sure. But the point of this video isn't whether these allegations are true or false. And at the end, it doesn't matter. It's these fans' responses to that is what mattered. Now we're going to dive into sort of like the conclusion of the video. And really the point for kind of showing all this and kind of going through the context is people's thoughts of separating art from artist, right? And that isn't even this. That isn't even this. Because if you're separating the art from the artist and the actions the artists take, you wouldn't even care enough to defend them. You wouldn't give a fuck. Because to you, it doesn't matter. It's just the art they make. But here, you do care what he does. But you only care to defend them. In fact, I think it's not. I don't think it's separating the art from the artist. You're using the art to defend the artist in most cases. I've seen it. I think one of the previous ones I showed said, well, his music's hot. You're using the art to defend his actions, and when you're not doing that, they're so delusional that they just immediately jump to back him. No matter what, even though he has a history of this, he has a history of criminal arrest for this, he has a history of being convicted of this, and a history of allegations. You know, I don't think most artists don't have tons of allegations against them, right? Like, that's not a common thing. So why do they think that everyone else is lying when it happens to Chris Brown? Like, they think this happens to every artist? I don't know, but that's the point of this, is it doesn't make sense, and they're not defending art from artists. They're using art to defend the artist, or they're just so delusional that they just defend the artist. So, I mean, I guess do you. If you're a fan of him, I mean, you are. It's on you and all the people it brings, I guess. But I don't know. That's kind of it for the video. Kind of a little bit of a rant. Love you guys. You guys have a great night.